The name's theatre. Talks theatre. Bang. If you know me, you know I love a Mischief theatre show. I feel like their work could very easily fall into this same formula, but they're constantly pushing the boat out, trying new things, refining their work, and making it feel different and trying to build upon what they've done, but never feeling like it's lagging behind, never feeling like it doesn't still maintain to that same identity that made us fall in love with them. And their latest show has now landed in the West End, the comedy about spies, a spiritual successor to the comedy about bank robbery, now playing at the Noel Theatre in the West End. So, was the comedy about spies a mission success, or did it have its cover blown? Let's find out. But if you haven't seen my face before, hi, I'm Ellie, I talk about theatre. I am the most chaotic theatre person on the internet. I do reviews, I do discussions, I do game shows and versus brackets, and if any of that sounds interesting to you, please consider hitting like and subscribe, it really helps me, it helps out the channel. But let's dive into the comedy about spies. Now, I have to admit, I'm a huge fan of the comedy spy genre. I love a good spy parody. I have a real soft spot for things like Austin Powers or Johnny English, and obviously, we all know how much I love Operation Mincemeat. But there's also to show you the fact that this is a genre that has been parodied again and again and again, and I think that was a pitfall that the comedy about spies could easily fall into. Feeling too similar to something like Operation Mincemeat, which currently still is playing in the West End. And while I love a thematic two-show day with two different plays that both feature James Bond fairly prominently, they will kind of be in direct competition with each other just because of similar subject matter, even if the settings themselves are different periods of history and different types of spying. But I think this is what Mischief comedy do. They see a genre, they take a genre, and they play. Whether that be a murder mystery, a pantomime, a nativity, or whatever it may be. Mischief Theatre are great at this, and the comedy about spies still manages to stand up on its own, bring new parody and new comedy out of the spy genre, and still make it feel like it has the genuine Mischief identity, as well as genuinely being a fun spy story. So let's talk about that story. The comedy about spies follows everyman Bernard. He is a wet blanket. He is so weak. He's just an average guy. He wants to propose to his girlfriend, but he finds himself in the middle of this spy mission. A British spy has gone rogue and is about to leak information that could end the Cold War to the Russians. At the Piccadilly Hotel in London, we see two sets of spies at work. The Russians planning to receive these documents, and the Americans trying to stop it. And in the middle of this, one baker, Bernard, who gets wrapped up in it all. This concept on its own is so fun. Remove any of the comedy, and the actual idea itself is just gold. There's so much just from that feels like you could mine for comedic potential. And Mischief Theatre do that successfully, and I think one of the best ways they do that is these very well thought out different character dynamics of all of these different groups. We essentially have four pairings in this show. Firstly, we have these two sets of spies, each with their own straight man and more comedic foil. The Americans, we get this in Dave Hearn, playing this very serious spy. He takes his work very seriously, but seemingly gets his cover blown a lot. His foil ends up being his own mother, which is so funny. A genius idea to take this really serious character who's taking his work just as serious, and pair him with the one person in the world who can embarrass him to high heaven. This dynamic is so fun to watch throughout the entire piece. Absolutely genius. On the other side, we have the Russians. Our more serious person here is Elena, played by Charlie Russell. And her comedic foil comes in Sergei, played by Chris Leask. who is genuinely just so sweet. He's getting really into this whole spying thing. He's coming up with huge backstories for all of the characters he's creating, and he genuinely just wants real human connection. And you see Charlie Russell's character, you see Elena and this hard shell slowly wear down through the show. Their relationship that they have is so sweet. And really feels like it builds and builds through this show to take you on a really lovely journey. On our non-spy side, we have the dynamic between Bernard and his girlfriend. She's kind of done with that relationship, but's really struggling to end it because Bernard is just such a lovely guy. He's so sweet and kind, and she can't really find the right reason to let him go. And Bernard is trying to propose. He set up all of this perfect moment, but because of all the spy antics going on around him, everything is failing one after another. And our final dynamic is between this over-the-top actor played by Henry Lewis, because who else could play this role? This is basically Robert Grove 2.0, and this hotel manager played by Greg Tannehill. I pair these two together, but these two kind of work as their own agents, if you get the pun, I guess, as the actor is trying to audition for the role of James Bond, but is just so bad. This is just the worst actor you've ever seen. And antics and misinformation and misunderstandings pursue. These groups interact with each other. There's so many different dynamics that come out depending on the different groupings that we get. They play so well with every single dynamic, bring out different moments of comedic gold. These characters are fairly simple when you look at them, but there's so much comedic potential in how they interact. There's also a really interestingly structured show, especially when we're thinking about Mischief theatre. There's a notion in comedy that faster is funnier, and so a lot of plays and a lot of comedic shows will be very fast-paced. But Act 1 of Comedy About Spies actually stays fairly stagnant. We only have 3 real scenes in 3 locations. Starting in MI5 or MI6, I can't remember which one. I always go between the two, I don't know which one's which. And then 2 pretty large scenes to take us through the rest of Act 1. A scene in the hotel lobby setting up all of these characters, and then finally ending with a scene in 4 different hotel rooms. And this just allows them to really milk the comedy out of each of these settings, raising the stakes bit by bit and playing with the set and the characters and everything they've got at their disposals to just bring the audience into stitches. I'll speak more about some of these locations later, especially when I'm speaking about the set and design of this show, but it's so well crafted, really well structured in Act 1. Not what I was expecting, but really worked. Act 2 jumps around a little bit more. It does feel slightly jarring. They do build up towards it a little bit more, with the first scene in Act 1 feeling a bit more set in one location and then slowly kind of going into all of the different locations in the hotel. But still, I did really miss the really leaning into the full comic potential, and I feel like there's maybe a place where they could have cut like 1 location jump maybe, but nonetheless that's a fairly small nitpick from me. And as we build more and more to our conclusion, as we build up in this story, we actually find ourselves with some really fun twists and turns, some moments where they feel genuinely earned, but I wasn't expecting them at all. Where we've seen in other Mischief projects this idea of taking all of the ideas from the original source material and just parodying them, like Play That Goes Wrong, where, you know, the plot twist of a murder mystery is the most important thing, but we find it out like immediately because it's gone wrong. Here, they actually keep this fairly close to their chest. And because of that, when we get to these moments, it does genuinely feel like a proper spy story. That's the genius of Mischief. That's what they do so well, taking the ideas of each of these genres and playing with them. Looking at what's important for all of these genres and making sure that their stories and their versions, while they're being more playful and, you know, leaning more in towards parody, they're still making sure that the important hallmarks of that genre are met. Whether that be more genuine like it is here, or whether it's because they're wanting to make fun of it, or poke fun at it, or be more playful and joking with it. They're an incredibly clever company of creatives who I respect massively. And yet again, Mischief have crafted a show that feels fun to follow, that has so many of the wonderful moments that you would expect from this genre, while still having that Mischief identity. The unique spark that makes a Mischief show feel like a Mischief show. So it doesn't just feel like any other spy parody, it feels like Mischief doing a spy parody. And I think a lot of that does come from the comedy of the piece. Now, I'm not going into specific jokes here, I'm going to speak more vaguely for two main reasons. Number one, you don't want me doing all of these jokes and spoiling it for you, really, do you? You want to see the masters at work, you don't want me to spoil it in this review, go and see the show. I could never deliver it as well as they do, come on. But also I feel like comedy is so subjective, and by kind of stepping out and explaining why I kind of found it funny, or the techniques that they use, is better to kind of justify why I found it funny rather than just telling you the joke itself. I think the aforementioned dynamics is something that brings out so much comedy in this show. The way they bounce off each other, the comedic potential in these dynamics, they explore it so well. And these naturally lead to great moments and great potential for all the different types of jokes they have in the comedy about spies. There's fantastic one-liners. The inbred joke is probably one of my favourite jokes in a Mischief show ever. There's tons of wordplay, there's great uses of setup and punchline, and running gags that are just so funny. Even getting to a point where you'll see things in the background when they've brought out the set and you're going, ah, I know what they're gonna do here. They make great use of dramatic irony, honestly, you know, that even overlaps with what I've just said as well. But these moments of setup where you see things that the characters don't, building towards the reveal, and feeling really satisfying when it finally pays off. The final moment of Act 2 is something they build up through that entire act. They drop more and more little hints and details about it as you go through the entire act, and you're waiting for it. It's building towards it. There's moments where it clicks and you realize, and that final moment where it completely pays off is so genuinely funny, so strong. It teases you and teases you, which makes that final reveal so much better. And there's even great use of props and set. Some of these diving into absurdity, and even playing and laughing with the audience at times. Moments that would be very difficult to achieve on stage are done with props swapped out for actors. And instead of trying to really hide these or make them really effective, they kind of laugh along with the audience. Playing with your expectations and going, yeah, we know it's a joke too, we know it's silly, it's playful, it's camp. You're in on the joke, and I really love that. So on the whole, this is a really lovely and brilliantly crafted Mischief show. So funny, so punchy, still feeling like its own thing and not falling into just doing similar jokes that other parodies have done. Managing to bring the Mischief brand into a spy genre, and doing jokes that no other company could do but Mischief with material like this. But another thing I really want to highlight is actually the set and design of this show. Now, the easiest comparison to make to the comedy about spies is obviously the comedy about bank robbery. And sadly, I can't do this, and there's one reason for that. I had tickets in April 2020. You can put two and two together of why that didn't happen, and why I have not seen the comedy about a bank robbery. But the biggest difference between something like the Goes Wrong series and the comedy about series is that this is a lot more grounded. The Goes Wrong series is a play within a play. It's always a company of actors doing something on stage, and you're watching the actors playing the actors and things going wrong. So the sets are a little bit more flimsy. The sets are a little bit more... So while the sets are good in that, they're always meant to be a bit more stagey. Whereas a comedy about series, well, I call it a series, it's a series of two, is more grounded in a real-world setting. While the antics are parody, while the antics are over the top, they're still grounded in that world. So the set kind of needs to match that. And dare I say, this is one of my favourite Mischief sets since Peter Pan Goes Wrong. And I really love the Peter Pan Goes Wrong set. We find ourselves in this luxurious 1960s Art Decor hotel. And oh my god, it looks gorgeous. From the actual proscenium and the decor around that, to the way they light it and these LEDs and the colours. Oh, gorgeous. To the hotel lobby and the setting there. We get rooftops, we get hotel rooms, we get the actual setting of MI5, or MI6, I still don't know which one it is. MI5 feels more right, but I have a feeling they said MI6 in the play, and now I'm conflicted. But I think one of my favourite set pieces, and one of the ones we spend the most time in, is the colour-coordinated hotel rooms. Not only does this set look great, but it's also so practical and so well used through the comedy of that scene. At a first glance, you'll think, oh, these hotel rooms are different coloured just to differentiate them. And then you realise that they're colour coordinated so that as characters go from these different hotel rooms, as items move from room to room, you're able to very easily track which influence is in which room. That's so clever, and I love moments on stage like this, where you see a real collaboration between the writing team and the designers, the creative teams, coming together to craft and bring the comedic potential to its highest by working together. That's theatre, baby. We love it. There's also a travelator on stage, which is very sparingly used. It only really gets used in one scene in Act 2, and I must say, it doesn't really feel like it was massively necessary. It's very cool and it's used well. I'm glad it's there. But I mean, a lot of the budget would have gone in that travelator and they only really use it like once. Surely you would have wanted to use it more. Especially because the thing that they're bringing on the travelator is kind of held by an actor anyway. So if you were just going to use an actor to bring it on, did you really need the travelator? I don't know. But I do enjoy the effect that it creates in this back and forth, this travelling between rooms for this opening of Act 2. And finally, I love the 1960s fashion. The classic spywear, the hats, the long coats, these gorgeous suits, and also all of the dresses and the colour scheme, especially for Adele James and Nancy Zamet's characters, who both look absolutely gorgeous. I love the striking colours of the bellboys and the hotel staff. These bright uniforms that really stand out on stage. These costumes are stunning. Absolute incredible work here from Deborah Andrews on costume and David Farley on set. And finally, let's speak about this cast. I've spoken a little bit about these character dynamics, so I'll dive into them a little bit more now. Firstly, we have Henry Shields as Bernard. I love his portrayal here. He's so sweet, he's so innocent, but there's such a genuineness to him that really makes you fall for him. He's so in over his head, but Shields brings a real sincerity to all of his delivery. This type of character could very easily fall from the other side into being a bit annoying. And it takes a great actor to manage to portray this character and make that sweetness feel earned. We have Nancy Zamet, who plays the mother. Oh my god, so funny. The accent, so good. The delivery and the punchlines and the moments where she's really fawning over Dave Hearn, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And speaking of Dave Hearn, she's paired wonderfully with Dave Hearn, playing Lance. This serious spy, taking his work very seriously, but in a very unserious situation. This pair play off each other so well. You can tell the history there, you can see all of it on stage. An absolute delight. Just as delightful as our Russians. Chris Leask and Charlie Russell. I've spoken about how much I love their dynamic and their relationship, and it's so cute. This slow burn friendship that they build together, it's genuinely sweet. And these two are so good at committing to a comedic bit. I think the moments where they're in the blue hotel room and trying to really engage with the fake characters they're creating and building these entire backstories, the moments where they're trying to commit and you can see them thinking through these characters, and the moments where the facade kind of fades, they both play these so well. Some of the funniest comedic bits in the entire show come from these two and their dynamic. Wonderful stuff. We have Henry Lewis as Douglas Woodbead. He's playing Robert Grove. But if you're looking for someone to play a Robert Grove character, Henry Lewis is the person to ask. No one does it better than him. And I think the fact that it's so much more exaggerated in a Robert Grove, it's so much more bigger, and the ego is so much bigger somehow, allows Lewis to play more here. Lewis has some great moments of physical comedy. I love his anger and frustration that he takes out on everyone around him. The sole objective of doing well at this audition. It's so well crafted, so brilliant. A great performance from Henry Lewis here. We have Adele James, who plays Rosemary. I know I've spoken a lot about straight men in this show, but I feel like Adele James kind of leans into that dynamic a lot more, being a great contrast to the energy that Bernard brings. And I love this conflict that she creates in her character. The push and pull about her work dynamic and the relationship that she wants to build with Bernard. Knowing that it's kind of getting in the way and these things are mixing and things aren't quite working. And she knows that she doesn't really want to hurt him. There's a lot of great character work in there that brings out a lot of real emotion and a lot of real heart into this story. This very wacky and silly story. And finally, we have Greg Tannehill, who plays Albert, our head manager at this hotel. He's kind of thrown into this role of trying to fix all of this mess being created by all of these different characters in this hotel. And Tannehill's delivery is phenomenal. Keeping up this manager role and keeping himself to that standard while everything around him is collapsing. Going above and beyond for his hotel guests, I must say. The comedy about Spies is an absolute delight. I really enjoyed this one. I love Mischief Theatre and the ways that they push the boat out and constantly refine and improve their work. And I'm so glad that they've managed to achieve this with Comedy About Spies as well. The comedy is quick. The punchlines are hilarious. The dynamics between the characters are so well crafted and used throughout the entire piece. If you're wanting a fun night out at the theatre, full of laughs, your mission starts right here at the Noel Coward Theatre. But what do you think? Have you seen a Comedy About Spies? What did you think? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. If you did enjoy this video, please consider hitting like and subscribe. It really helps me out, helps out the channel. Here's some links to some other videos on screen right now, and then link to my Instagram if you'd like to drop me a follow over there. I also have other social links and a merch store in the description down below. But that's it for me today, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.